Not all shadows stay in the dark. There are people who enter your life with no warning. No weapons, no violence, just charm, vulnerability, or silence. But over time, something in you begins to dissolve. Your energy, your confidence, your clarity. They erode, like slow water against stone. And by the time you notice it, you're already inside the trap. Carl Jung warned us about these people. Not with fire and brimstone, but with the language of the psyche, the unconscious patterns we refuse to see. Because according to Jung, the most dangerous people aren't always malicious. They're often lost, unaware of themselves, hollowed out by wounds they never faced, and now looking for someone else to carry them. He believed the unconscious wasn't just internal, it was collective, meaning the people around us can become vessels for our own buried fears, and we for theirs. This is what makes them dangerous. Not just what they do to us, but what they awaken within us. The wrong person can pull you back into patterns you thought you escaped. They can amplify your self-doubt, guilt, anger, or shame without ever raising their voice. Sometimes they don't even realize they're doing it, but your unconscious does. Your body tightens around them, your thoughts get foggy. And still, you don't walk away. In this video, we're going to explore 6 psychological types Jung warned us to watch for. Not because they're evil, but because they mirror the parts of ourselves we haven't made conscious. Each one wears a different mask. Some we pity, some we admire, some we love. But all of them drain something vital from you. And the longer you stay entangled, the harder it becomes to tell who's really changing, them or you. The last one on this list is the most dangerous of all, because they'll convince you there's no darkness in them. And if you believe it, they'll convince you the same about yourself. The eternal victim. They never seem to catch a break. The world is always unfair. People are always cruel. And life for them is just one long series of misfortunes, none of which they ever take responsibility for. The eternal victim doesn't just tell sad stories, they live inside them. They've built an identity around being wounded, wronged, and overlooked. And at first, this might trigger your empathy. You'll want to help. You'll want to show them kindness where others didn't. You might even begin to carry their pain for them. That's where it begins. But over time, something starts to shift. You'll notice their stories never evolve. Their suffering never transforms. And your support, instead of helping them rise, becomes fuel for their inertia. Jung warned that the victim archetype, when left unconscious, becomes parasitic. It feeds not on healing, but on attention. It doesn't seek growth, only affirmation of its helplessness. And that's what makes this type so dangerous. They need your pity, because it validates the story that absolves them from changing. If they can convince you that they're powerless, then they never have to face the truth of their own agency. And if you're not careful, they'll convince you that your role in life is to rescue others, to carry pain that was never yours to hold. But Jung knew, to over-identify with the victim is to disown your power, and to stay entangled with someone who refuses to grow is to slowly suppress your own growth in turn. Ask yourself, do they want support, or do they want a saviour? Are they trying to evolve, or are they trying to keep the wound open because it's all they know? Helping others isn't the problem. But when compassion turns into self-erasure, when your energy becomes a sacrifice to maintain someone else's story, that's not healing. That's codependency. The most dangerous thing about the eternal victim isn't that they suffer, it's that they never stop, and they expect you not to either. The hollow mirror. They'll reflect whatever you want to see, but behind their smile, there's no one really there. The hollow mirror is the type of person who adapts to every room, every trend, every belief, not out of openness, but out of fear. Fear of disapproval, fear of conflict, fear of being truly known. Jung described this phenomenon as a kind of psychic emptiness, a person whose persona is so inflated that the inner self atrophies in silence. They are a walking projection screen, shaped entirely by what others expect of them. At first, they're magnetic, agreeable, easy to talk to. You may feel understood, validated, even admired, but the admiration is hollow. It's not coming from a place of real depth, only reflection. Over time, you realize there's no anchor, no core values, no convictions of their own, just a perfectly polished echo of whoever stands in front of them. The danger here is subtle. These people aren't overtly toxic or harmful. They don't shout, lie, or betray in the traditional sense. But their very absence can become corrosive. Because when someone never reveals who they really are, you're left holding the weight of the relationship alone. It's like being emotionally gaslit by silence, constantly guessing, second-guessing, wondering why everything feels shallow, despite how close you seem. Jung would say that the hollow mirror has repressed the self so deeply that their entire identity has become performance. They may not even know who they are anymore, and in that void, they become incredibly susceptible to manipulation, or worse, agents of it. Because when you don't stand for anything, you can be used for anything. Being around them can drain you. You may begin to question yourself, lose touch with your intuition, or overthink every interaction, not because they're malicious, but because their shapelessness distorts your own reflection. Protect your center. Don't mistake agreeableness for authenticity. And remember, a mirror might show you what you want to see, but it can't love you back. The whispering flame. They burn quietly, soft-spoken, poetic, often brilliant, but everything they touch eventually scorches. The whispering flame is seductive in a different way, not with charm or conformity, but with intensity. These are the artists of destruction, the wounded mystics, the ones who speak of life with passion, but underneath carry a festering resentment toward it. Jung might call this the shadow's romantic, someone who has fallen in love with their own suffering, and now expects you to do the same. At first, they seem profound. You're drawn in by their melancholy, their sensitivity, their ability to name things others avoid. They speak of pain in beautiful ways. They don't run from the darkness. They invite you in. But stay long enough and you'll see. They don't want healing. They want validation of the wound. Misery becomes identity. And the closer you get, the more they'll want you to abandon the light too. This type is dangerous not because they lie, but because their truth is twisted. Every hope is naive. Every joy is illusion. Every future is doomed. Their insights carry weight, but it's the kind of weight that crushes, not liberates. And the more you share of yourself, the more they'll whisper back the same bitter message. It's all meaningless anyway. They are often gifted, empathic, even visionary, but their vision has curdled. Rather than using their insight to illuminate, they use it to pull others into the shadows with them, not as a guide, but as a companion in shared decay. Jung warned of this archetype in his writings on the negative animus and anima, the internalized voice of cynicism, disguised as wisdom. The voice that says, don't grow, don't try, don't hope. It's all a lie. In someone with power over your heart, that voice can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So listen carefully. The whisper may sound like truth. It may feel intimate, but ask yourself, does it bring clarity or corrosion? Does it open you or cage you? Not all fire gives warmth. Some flames only exist to consume. The smiling tyrant. Some people control with fear. Others do it with love. The smiling tyrant is the latter, but only on the surface. This is the parent who says they're just protecting you while suffocating your autonomy. The friend who always knows what's best, especially when it benefits them. The mentor who showers you with praise, but only when you agree. Their weapon isn't rage or violence, it's warmth, charm, and obligation. And that's what makes them so hard to see. Carl Jung spoke often of the persona, the false self we present to the world. The smiling tyrant has mastered theirs. They seem noble, generous, endlessly patient. They use morality like a currency. But beneath it all lies a darker truth. They do not respect your freedom. What they really want is a compliance wrapped in gratitude. You will start to feel it in small ways. You say no and suddenly they're distant. You express a different viewpoint and their approval turns cold, but they never say anything overtly cruel. That's the trap. Their power lives in subtlety. They make you question yourself, make you feel guilty for having needs, make you feel like you're the selfish one for pulling away. And if you call them out, they'll act wounded. They'll say you misunderstood, that they only wanted to help, that they always had your best interest at heart. And part of you will believe it, because that's what they've trained you to do. But the truth is simple. Freedom makes them anxious. Independent thought feels like betrayal. And behind the smile is a demand. Be who I need you to be, or else. Jung believed the greatest evil isn't always loud and obvious. It can wear a pleasant face. It can speak softly. It can offer you love, only to chain you to it. That's why this type is so dangerous, because they don't destroy you with abuse. They destroy you with dependence. So ask yourself, is the warmth you're receiving making you stronger or smaller? Because not all love is love, and not all smiles are kind. The mirror that lies. Some people don't want to control you, hurt you, or even love you. They simply reflect you back, but in a way that distorts who you are. This is the mirror that lies. At first, they seem like perfect companions. They like what you like. They affirm your beliefs. They echo your language. You feel seen, even celebrated. But this isn't real connection. It's mimicry. What they're actually doing is studying your shadow and feeding it. If you're proud, they flatter. If you're angry, they validate. If you feel like a victim, they provide endless sympathy, but never the kind that helps you grow. Only the kind that cements the identity. They give you a funhouse mirror version of yourself. One that confirms everything you already think, even when it's harmful. Jung warned us that the most dangerous relationships are those that prevent self-confrontation. The mirror that lies isn't a tyrant or a narcissist. They're far more subtle. They enable you, not because they care, but because they gain security from staying in your orbit. They fear growth, fear change. So they offer only comfort, never challenge. And slowly you begin to mistake comfort for truth. They don't outright lie, they just never tell the whole truth. They never question your ego, never disrupt your illusions. They keep you locked inside yourself, spinning, always justified, always stuck. In their reflection, your worst habits become quirks, your wounds become shields, your patterns go unquestioned, because they want you to stay the same. And if you try to change, if you start to pull away or evolve, they get distant, maybe passive-aggressive, or maybe just sad. You'll feel guilty, like you're abandoning them. But what you're really doing is breaking the mirror. And they know it. Jung believed that growth only happens through friction, through conflict, through contradiction. And the mirror that lies will offer you none of that. Only your shadow's favourite version of reality. Be wary of those who always agree, who always comfort, who never hold you accountable. Because sometimes the softest reflections are the most deceptive. Not every mirror is meant to show you who you really are. The hollow prophet. The final figure is the most seductive and the most difficult to recognise. They don't appear dangerous. In fact, they often look enlightened, wise, serene. They speak in truths, quote the ancients, and carry the calm confidence of someone who's seen things. This is the hollow prophet. Jung warned of false gurus, individuals who sound profound but lack integration. They might preach detachment, but suppress their own emotions. They speak of love, but use their authority to manipulate. They have the language of awakening, but not the experience. These people have not conquered their shadow. They've simply buried it beneath a polished identity, a spiritual mask. And the danger lies in how convincing that mask is. Because when we're in pain or lost or searching for guidance, these people appear like lighthouses in the storm. But there's no real light inside. only echoes. The hollow prophet thrives in vague, poetic abstraction. They avoid specifics, avoid accountability. They wrap you in riddles and mantras, not to help you see clearly, but to ensure you never ask questions. Because clarity would expose them, and exposure would dissolve their power. Jung believed that the true teacher is one who leads you back to yourself, not to them. The hollow prophet reverses this. They make you feel dependent on their insight. They use fear of regression, fear of being unenlightened, to keep you loyal. And they subtly imply if you leave, you'll fall back into darkness. But they are the darkness. Not in the dramatic sense, not as villains, but in the subtler, more insidious form. The blind leading the blind. They're not always malicious. Often, they believe their own illusions. But belief is not embodiment. And in the end, their path leads nowhere. No roots, no grounding. Just airy ideals floating above the real work of being human. You'll know you found one when questions are discouraged, when contradiction is deflected, and when their certainty feels more hollow than holy. The real prophets, the ones who face themselves, don't need followers. They don't speak to impress. They speak to liberate. Be cautious of those who sound awakened, but never weep, never rage, never admit their own confusion. If someone claims to have transcended the human condition, they've almost certainly abandoned part of it. Which of these shadows have you met? Or maybe, which ones have you become? Let us know in the comments. Your reflections are part of the work. And if you found something in this that stayed with you, we'd love for you to subscribe and join the self-data community. Your presence and your support truly means everything.